Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in again to the presidential election show. It's episode 6, and we're just 35 days away from the election. And of course, today is the big day. It's the first presidential debate. It's therefore an absolute pleasure to welcome back on the show the LP Brussels in-house expert on the US elections, Ryan Hunter. Welcome back, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, it's a very exciting day for us and everyone, I'm sure our viewers too. And I hope you're going to take us through how important this debate today will be. Maybe explain what time it will be, indeed, European time. But obviously overshadowed surely now by those amazing allegations revealed by the New York Times about Donald Trump's tax affairs, although he alleges it's just fake news. And of course, the Supreme Court nomination. Will they make an impact? Will they overshadow the other issues that we were expecting to be addressed during the debate?
Hi, Mark. Well, those are some big questions. Well, first and foremost, the debates tonight, I believe, and many other pundits also believe, is very important, not in the sense that the debate will for sure impact the race, but that there are fewer and fewer opportunities for the race to be changed or for the narrative to be changed. And this debate and the rest of the debates presents a great chance for either candidate to really lay out their arguments and set a narrative that could be hard to change between now and election day. Now, as you mentioned, the New York Times article from Sunday evening is bound to feature quite prominently. Its importance remains to be seen in terms of what it alleges, in the sense that a businessman like Donald Trump was able to use and potentially abuse the system for tax benefits. That's more important in this debate in terms of Joe Biden using it to bolster his argument that he's the ordinary guy from Scranton, right? You're not going to see him pulling off what Trump has pulled off on his tax declaration. So that's where I really see the importance. Now, the tax declarations are not a topic that was laid out by Chris Wallace, but whether the moderator brings it up, whether Biden brings it up, or even Trump himself, it's going to feature, and it's going to feature quite heavily tonight.
Yeah, and just to pursue on the tax allegations, I mean, I think a lot of people, of course, will just say, well, so what's new? We knew all that, but there's been a lot of social media activity going around about how much the others have been paying in tax. And I mean, in some ways, doesn't this play into Trump's hands? He can point to Biden and say, your tax bill is millions of dollars, which it was. I think in 1 year, he paid over $3 million in tax. Trump can say, I only pay $750 in tax. I mean, almost portraying himself as the ordinary guy in contrast to, the multi-millionaire lifestyle of Joe Biden. In other words, Joe is no ordinary Joe.
Well, I suspect ordinary in the sense of avoiding tax loopholes or even potentially lying about your income sources to cover any income, therefore making it appear you've lost more than you really have. Now, getting into the details is not going to happen on the debate because it's not going to sway anyone. But the headline is that for 10 of the last 15 years, Donald Trump paid no federal tax. And when he did pay, it was very little compared to what you should be paying for a man in that kind of position. So it's the story itself is going to really be defined by the way it's brought up tonight, because it's not yet a primary campaign issue. It's only broken quite recently, so it hasn't really been set in stone in that sense, not in the same way as the Supreme Court nomination process has. So we need to see how each side really deals with that in a live performance.
And let's move on to that Supreme Court nomination. And some are arguing actually it's quite a clever choice. She's a very credible candidate, a good and long and distinguished history in the law and in court, isn't it going to be quite hard for the Democrats to try and constitutionally delay, frustrate, or block a legitimate nomination? And doesn't that risk actually overshadowing what until now has been a pretty positive campaign on the part of the Democrats?
Yes, well, the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a liberal titan on the courts, and the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett, who is a conservative darling, you would call her. She's very consistent in her views, and she appeals quite heavily to the conservative base of the GOP. It's really, really quite hard to see a situation where she won't pass a Senate vote. And therefore, if the Republicans want her to be a Supreme Court justice before the election, they can make it happen. They have the majority in the Senate to do that. But also, there's a lot of reasons that they would want to go forth with this before the election. One being they might not win. Two being the Supreme Court could be brought in to deal with the outcome of the election, and having a possible 6-3 split in their favor could really help. And on the Democrat side, it's hard to know what they might do tactically speaking, right? Do they try and grill her and try and draw out some of her more conservative views, or do they go as far as boycotting the hearings themselves? So I've heard both things being discussed, and it's tough to know what they'll go for. The polling suggests that a majority of Americans would like the winner of the election to fill the seat, but that's not going to prevent the Republicans from doing it if they want.
And in some ways, it could be argued, and some people have argued this is actually more important than the election itself, that the ability for conservatives in the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution for maybe decades to come, because of their inbuilt majority that will be confirmed by this appointment if it goes ahead, will be pretty seismic in terms of the way in which the Constitution is interpreted, not just in terms of this election, but maybe on future issues such, of course, as abortion and gun control. I mean, do you tend to go along with that narrative that this is absolutely a seismic moment in American political and constitutional history?
100%. I think the Supreme Court as an institution, and considering how long an appointment can last for, is already very important. And Trump has successfully nominated 2 justices already as president, but it really is rare and is the chance of a lifetime to alter the balance of the court. So especially in a way so drastic as this. Having a 6-3 split for the conservative side of the court allows them to review things like the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, abortion rights by potentially reviewing Roe v. Wade. There's a whole host of issues that they could take a look at, and this would leave the Democrats fighting an uphill battle against the Supreme Court, even if they were to regain both houses of Congress. The Supreme Court shift towards 6-3 could last for a long time. And Amy Coney Barrett, being 48 years old, she's quite young for a justice. And, you can imagine her being in this position for 40 years. Now, the court will change in that time, but, these things last a long time, these appointments.
Yeah, so we could be in the ironic position where it bolsters support for the Democrats in the run-up to and indeed during the election, but actually in the long run could well play into the hands of the conservatives within the Republican Party, and of course Trump himself. Even though he may be the loser in the election, he sort of wins the campaign.
Absolutely.
So we're all going to be tuning in tonight. I mean, Michael Meehan last week, though, said that barring Joe Biden falling off the stage, we're not likely to see any dramatic shift in the polls. But I know you'll be watching them, as you have been now in recent weeks, keeping a close eye on those 5 key states that you identified 3 weeks ago now. Do you want to take us through the latest polling, Ryan? Has the build-up to the debates concentrated minds? We're just 35 days away now. The debates are very much in people's minds. Are we seeing any shift at all? Or is it still very much stuck in the position that we saw almost at the beginning, with Biden ahead and being ahead, not maybe in a major way, but a decisive way in those key states?
Well, that's a good question. What we're seeing so far is Biden is even increasing his lead in the national polls. Now, we've covered a lot of times on this show why that is not so important, because he could be racking up votes in California or New York, right? But that pattern, next to the fact that recent polling shows him enjoying a 6-point lead over seniors, white seniors 65 and over, by 6 points, which is a group that Trump carried by 13 points, looking at the battleground states, and Joe Biden is ahead in that demographic, which shows that some of Trump's key voters may be abandoning him. Now, that's not a good message to have just before a debate, and you can see that there have been attempts by the Trump campaign to reappeal to these voters. What has happened over the last few weeks is early voting has opened. Now, there's been somewhere around 1 million votes cast. Almost 800,000 of those votes are from Wisconsin, Virginia, and North Carolina, which you may recognize some of those as battleground states. So there is a lot of excitement already towards the early voting. But for me, the most consequential change that's taken place in the last few weeks is some of the battleground states extending the voting period for receiving ballots, especially mail-in ballots. As long as these ballots are postmarked, that is sent by Election Day and received upwards of 3 to 4 days after Election Day, they will be counted, which reduces the chances of a result on election night. And I think we could be looking at quite a few days of waiting around to have a final result from the election.
Yeah, well, thank you for that update. I'm sure we'll have another one next week. But as always on the show, your prediction, Ryan. Who's going to win?
Well, I've for 2 weeks now, I've been saying that it's hard to see Joe Biden not winning. And recent polling is even now showing him making inroads in demographics that we would not even expect him to be making inroads in. And we're running out of chances for the race to change. So until Joe Biden falls off the stage, as Michael said last week during a debate, I'm going to still have to go for a Joe Biden victory.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Nice that we end that show on a very clear prediction from you once again. Obviously, that may all change tonight as we watch through the night the debate. I hope everyone watching tunes in next week. But in the meantime, I hope you like, you share, but also tell us what you think. And if you've got questions for the future, do submit those questions, and we'll put them to Ryan and our other guests, including Michael Meehan. And don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, to subscribe and to ring that notification bell. So enjoy the debate tonight, and I hope you tune in next week for the presidential election show. Thank you very much, and in particular, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.